The question on everybody's mind is the million-dollar question. When will Harry Potter Wizards Unite release? When can we actually play the game? We've seen gameplay footage. We've seen teaser trailers. We don't have a release date. For those of you who don't know exactly how all the time frame on this game has played out over the past, man, like, well, it's been over a year, but for about the last 6 months. Here's kind of a brief recap. In November of 2018, we found out 2019 was going to be the launch year for Wizards Unite. Then we got like no news in all of like January, another teaser trailer in February, but also in February, Kevin Sugihara, who was formerly an executive of Warner Brothers, in an interview with the LA Times, Kevin Sugihara said summer for Wizards Unite. Now, here's the thing. If you want to take him at his word, that puts it at like June 21st or later when the official summer solstice happens in the United States. But like, I didn't put a whole lot of credence in that as far as summer, because if you were to ask people, when's the winter? Most likely you're going to hear November, December, January, February. Well, all of a sudden, winter has gone on for too many months. Seasons are technically 3 months, and actually solstices are 3 months. So to me, summertime means basically anytime after school lets out for kids. So you're looking at like April, May, probably not those two, but definitely June, July, August, September, October, November kind of feels like fall. But I don't think Kevin Sugihara meant the actual summer. So that was late February. Then flash forward a couple of weeks from that story, and we get our first look at gameplay footage, and everybody's going crazy, and all of a sudden in the Google Play Store, you're able to pre-register for Wizards Unite. Everybody is going crazy, like, oh my gosh, we have to be close to at least a beta, if not the launch of this game. It's open for pre-registration, right? Well, there's a little bit of like conspiracy theory. There's a little bit of like doubt when it comes to how strict they are. It appears that in the Google Play Store, you have a 90-day window of when you're supposed to launch your game if you put it up for pre-registration, but it doesn't really appear to be a hard and fast rule. Here's where all the questions come in, because it's not available in the App Store. Now, Niantic did sign a big deal with Samsung. Is that part of it? But the Google Play Store is a lot more than just Samsung phones. There's Motorola, there's Google, there's a whole lot of other phones that run off the Android system and the Google Play Store. So that doesn't really hold a whole lot of water. Now, the reason why this was important is because it appears the Apple Store is a lot more stringent on if you put your app out with a pre-release or a pre-registration, you have to launch it within 90 days. And since it's not there, that led a lot of people to speculate, well, maybe it's not really coming out in 90 days. But if the Google Play Store is going to hold Niantic accountable to this 90 days, that is going to push us in the week of June 3rd. And I think technically it puts it at June 9th. June 9th is a Sunday. The general consensus is no game is going to launch on a weekend. So that would put it back to the 7th, which would be a Friday. But that doesn't seem all that likely as well, which is why I say the week of June 3rd. So you have the 3rd, the 4th, 5th, 7th. And that was kind of like the odds-on favorite for when this game would come out. But you still had that big asterisk next to it of the App Store did not have this. And if it was truly going to be released in 90 days, why isn't iOS getting the option to pre-register? And all through this process, I continue to maintain that I thought July, like the second week of July, was going to be when we would actually see Wizards Unite in its full version, not the beta version. But then last night, a bit of a kink was thrown into my prediction of July. And here's how all of this shook out. An article popped up from The Investor about SK Telecom. Now, if you will remember, SK Telecom and Deutsche Telekom signed kind of exclusive or some kind of a partnership deal with Niantic. Nobody really knew because nobody was commenting on what exactly the details of that partnership were, but we kind of have an insight into what that is now, because SKT did a like, I don't even know what to call it, kind of like an Apple event, but they did their event where they announced that they were launching 5G service later this week. Now, 5G is more expensive than what is already available, and they have a lot of strict laws in Korea as far as data usage and phones and whatnot. According to some of the other WooTubers, I believe Zoe was in there, James at Expecto Go, Mike from Wizarding World, maybe Wizarding Unite. I'll put a link in the description below to their channels. But they were talking about how Pokemon Go was delayed for 6 months in Korea because of these rather bizarre type data regulations that the government has put on their telecom companies. So they have their big event, and in it they announce, we've got 5G coming later this week, and as an incentive to get you to sign up for our 5G service, we are going to give, and I want to make sure I get this correct because I want to quote it, they're going to give access to Niantic's new HR game, Harry Potter Wizards Unite, in the first half of this year. Now that's a big deal. So I jumped on Discord with the other WooTubers and I'm like, whoa, did anybody see this? Nobody had, everybody jumped on it and they're like, whoa, what is this? It was pandemonium actually. But what came out of this is the fact that James over at Expecto Go mentioned that in Korea, yes, they use the Gregorian calendar, which is what you know of as January to December as a calendar, but they also have their own calendar that they go by. Maybe you've heard of the Lunar New Year. If you look at the Lunar New Year, I believe it started on February 5th of 2019. So if you look at the first half of the lunar year, all of a sudden, that is pushed back for the first half of the year. It's pushed back into July. So here's what we did. We put on our research hats, and I actually have a little bit of a background in media, working with the media, doing media relations, press releases, things of that nature. So what I did is I went to the bottom of the story and I emailed the writer of the story just on a whim. I'm like, I mean, what could it hurt? In Korea, I mean, this is like 10:30 at night for me, but in Korea it was 1:30 in the afternoon. There's a good chance that they were still around their desk. So I fired off an email and I just said, introduced myself, and I said, hey, I create YouTube content. I have a question. What do you mean by, what do you mean by the first half of this year? Are you using the Korean calendar or the Gregorian calendar? To which the author of the article wrote back and said, quote, it is before end June. I do not have an exact timeline of the release. Okay, so there you have it. This isn't an official source. Like, this is a writer of an article who was at this press event for SK Telecoms. So I took that and I was like, great, thanks. And I'm like, wait a minute. I have some follow-up questions. Like, we need to know more details on this. So I said, do you mind answering a couple of follow-up questions? And he said he'd be happy to answer. He may not be of help because he doesn't really know a whole lot more because he's not involved with SK Telecom and he's not involved with Niantic. But he said he'd be as helpful as he could. So I went ahead and asked, where did you get this information? There's since been the press release from SK Telecom, which goes over all of this as well. But at the time, I did not know about that. So I'm like, where did you get this information? Is the full game expected or just a beta? Because there's some vagueness, ambiguity in the way that it's worded. Like, they will have access to Wizards Unite. Access is in they may have the beta, or access is as in you're getting the full game. So I asked that question. Is this access part of the deal Niantic and SKT signed earlier this year? Will access in Korea be limited to only 5G customers at the beginning? And is the before July date Korea exclusive? Here's the information. He was, as far as I can tell, was very forthcoming in what he had to answer. So in regards to the first question of where'd you get this information, he got the information from a spokesperson at SKT. Totally jives with their press event. To the second question of, is the full game expected or just the beta? The reply was, from what I understand, the full game, as they want to attract consumers to their 5G services. That makes a lot of sense. You're not going to, as a company, go out and say, hey, you know what? If you sign up with our phone company and sign up for our more expensive data packages than what we currently have, we're gonna give you access to a beta. That's not gonna entice many people. But if you come in and say, if you sign up for a more expensive 5G package, you will get access to something that nobody else is getting access to, all of a sudden now there's an incentive for people to upgrade their data plans. To the third question, is this access part of the deal with Niantic and SKT? The answer was yes. So already there is incentive for them to be launching a full game. And it also makes sense that they would be getting access to the full game as far as the Korea market is concerned, because they have a deal signed with Niantic. So far, all the dots are all the I's are being dotted and all the T's are being crossed as far as I'm concerned on this. To the question of will access in Korea be limited to 5G, only 5G customers? Because 5G, while yes, I did just read that the United States was the first country to technically launch 5G. I believe Chicago and Minneapolis are the two cities that have 5G currently. I think it launched maybe today, and Korea was going for the title of the first to launch it. That's an important question, because if this game is only available for networks with 5G, like honestly, this game is 2 or 3 years away from being in the States. I think I read that by the end of this year, something like 35 cities in the US are expected to have 5G coverage, cellular, and I believe that's through Verizon. This isn't going to be, 5G is not going to be widespread when it first launches. This is going to be a multi-year rollout as far as getting complete coverage. They're not going to release a game that requires 5G and just eliminate the majority of their market for the first 3 years, which is really like more than the typical life cycle of a game anyways. So keep that in mind, that this is very important. They're trying to get people to upgrade to 5G so that they can have this game that they're not going to be able to play, but this is for Korea only. I don't expect this game to launch 5G capabilities only in the United States. You're just losing, and in the rest of the world actually, because you're just losing way too much of your market. Finally, I said, is the before July date Korea exclusive? And here's where it's a little fuzzy, because the answer is, it appears to be exclusive for SKT in Korea. That's why SKT mentioned it, so that customers won't consider KT or LGU Plus, which are competing data providers over in Korea. But if we look at all this, it could mean that only Korea is going to get the game before July. It is entirely possible. We could still be looking at a July launch. But I think when you take everything into account, I think all signs are pointing to either this game is going to launch as the Google Play Store suggests, within 90 days of March 11th, when we got the gameplay trailer and the pre-registration process. That's a very real possibility now. And this is also why I'm backing off of my second week of July, which I think was July. I mean, it wasn't late. It was like the 7th or 8th or something. But I'm gonna back off of that. I'm gonna say no, because the 90 days makes sense. And it makes more sense that they would launch on the Google Play Store, because if they can't meet the early June launch, they don't want to ruin things with the App Store. So it would make sense that they would back off a little bit until they knew an exact launch date. Honestly, in my heart of hearts, I think the projected launch date is early June, but I don't think they're ready to say all systems are go for early June. Now, what got me so excited for April 3rd is April 3rd is actually 90 days before the end of June. Now, the end of June is on a Sunday, so again, I don't think a game is going to launch on Sunday. So you back it up. My next best guess is, and actually my best guess is that last week of June, the last full week of June, for when Wizards Unite will launch, with the outside chance, and my second best guess of being that early June, like the 5th, 6th, 4th, 5th, 6th, somewhere in that time frame. So there we go. All signs are pointing to this game is basically ready to go. I really expect to hear next week, like within days, honestly, not weeks, definitely not months, but I expect to hear within days that we will get more information either about a beta or a little bit more firm of a launch date. I've also been keeping my eyes and ears open at Deutsche Telecom to see what they have to say. So far, they have not released any information about a partnership, including Wizards Unite, but they may have an event coming up that that they make some kind of announcement. So there you go. Now you guys know where all of this information came from. There was a lot of hype. It was Wednesday, it was 90 days out. That would make sense to drop some news and open pre-registration on the App Store. It actually did not come to fruition as of recording this video, which was a little disappointing, but I legitimately think everything is pointing to, again, that 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th time frame of June, or we're looking at like the 24th, 25th, 26th ballpark, somewhere in there. Let me know what you guys think. That's all I've got for this one. So until next time.